Hey, welcome back to the channel. This is Greg here on a beautiful day again at RKP, Rocky Knob Park in Boone, North Carolina. And today, I got a special one for us because it's time for a bike review. Once again, this time I've got the GT Force Carbon Elite. And this, if you notice, has an idler. Because this is one of those beautiful burly bikes known as a high pivot bike. So this is an enduro bike, 170, 160. And I've always been curious to try out like how it feels to have a high pivot bike. I'll talk about them in a minute and why they're unique, but this is supposed to be one of these bruiser kind of shuttle bikes, park bikes that you can just go as fast as you want. Don't even choose your line, just mock over rock gardens. And it's like a magic carpet. So can it deliver on that promise? Let's find out. Before we do, gotta chastise you a little bit. It looks like 90% of the people who watch videos here on the channel are not subscribed. That's not gonna help us tickle that little algorithm and get in front of more viewers. So if you wanna be a mensch, go ahead and click that subscribe button. Appreciate you. So what is a high pivot bike? Well, if you're interested in that, listen to the words that I'm about to say. If you're not interested in that, watch these beautiful clips. But a high pivot bike is one whose pivot point is higher than most. Sometimes it's quite a bit higher than this. So this is kind of a mid-high pivot. And what happens when you have a high pivot situation is when the bike compresses into its travel, the rear wheel goes backward quite a bit, more so than most bikes before it goes up and out of the way. And what that does is it causes chain growth and chain slap and pedal kickback, some of these unwanted things. So in order to kind of maintain more of a consistent chain feel, pedal feel, they put this idler in, and the chain goes around it, and that allows it to have more of a consistent feeling underfoot, whether you're using the suspension or not. Now, of course, that's another part that can have wear on it, you know, and get dirty. It can cause more friction, and so the idea is that they tend to be slower on like the climbs. But let's see if that's actually true. Okay, so climbing. You're not looking at the climb. I'm gonna go downhill back the way I came, but for climbing, this is an interesting bike. It is like the heaviest bike I've ever ridden. It's 35.5 pounds. It is carbon fiber, but front triangle only. And so you do feel that. Oh, this is insane. That's too easy. I think on like a fire road or a mellow climb, it would be kind of annoying. But for this chunky stuff, it rules because it's got a 78 degree, not 77, 78 degree C2 angle. So you're perched up here and you can just spin. So if you're like me and like you need something to climb, but you're not going for KOMs, it doesn't really matter how quickly you get there, but you need to have that capability on technical stuff, this is really cool. 78 degrees is, I mean, steeper than Yetis, steeper than pivots, and this also has a 63.5 degree head angle. So this is like the most modern geometry outside of like Gorilla Gravity that I've ever seen, and it pays off. Comfortable ride uphill, just slow, but very capable in the chunky stuff. So let's hit a little drop, see what kind of big hit ability this has. Tight turn, time to accelerate. Oh! This thing gets off the ground pretty easy. Yeah, that was not the plushest, but very consistent, even. Didn't blow through the travel. Not bad. All right, let's see how this thing jumps. You know, for a heavy bike with a gushy suspension that kind of extends the wheelbase, it shouldn't be any good. But I've been surprised before. Let's see what we got. This thing flies! Oh yeah, I noticed that on the pump track too. It's got some life to it, baby. No wonder Phil Metz likes this. All right, let's get to some descending. I'm really getting used to how this thing pedals, and I like it. To be honest, that idler pulley thing, like, dude, I don't even notice it's there. Now, of course, this is new, so I can't speak to how it would perform covered in gunk and stuff, but I think as long as you maintain the bike well, it's not as much of an issue as people tend to think. Let's see. Here's some chunk. Handles it fine. Yeah. Let's get even more chunk and hit Roman Road, which is like the rockiest trail around. In corners, it feels okay. Yoo! One thing you'll notice is I've actually got a different bar on this than the stock. And the stock one has more of a BMX kind of feel to it. Yeah, wow. That is some serious rocks. Yowza. So yeah, one of the things about this bike is the suspension kinematic itself. Like, you can tell the wheelbase grows and it gets out of the way, so you can kind of erase a lot of these big hits, which is great. But I'm finding that the tune is a little harsh for me, and unfortunately I can't make a lot of adjustments. The component spec on this, which is the Carbon Elite, is kind of bone stock, you know. It's got the Yari with a motion control damper. It's got the Super Deluxe Select with just rebound. It's got SRAM SX drivetrain. The TRP brakes are great. I like this fabric fungi set of grips a lot, actually. The dropper post I like. Handlebar I can't comment on because this is actually an Orbea one. The stock one has drawn some mixed reviews, but minor, you know? So, you know, the way I look at bikes now is either find a bike that has the exact spec you want and get that, or something more appropriate for most of us, get the bone stock one and then upgrade it piece by piece, which basically allows you to have that new bike day feeling like 6 to 10 times. I know, because I got the bone stock Rayon from Orbea and got a handlebar here and a fork here, drivetrain here. That's the way to go. And you know, I think that if you put a 4-way adjustable suspension on this, like for the shock and the fork, it would be so money.
Well, hey, that was interesting. I guess as it turns out, I jostled the camera a little bit much and it just turned off mid-ride. So here's where I was going with that as I drink this beautiful Moonshine beer. I was saying, whenever you talk about GT bikes, you have to talk about value. I mean, it's a value-packed brand. It is not known as the highest echelon Ibis Yeti kind of brand, but it is a very capable brand. I mean, again, I mentioned Phil Metz earlier for Skills with Phil. That's what he rides. And you see him on A-line, like throwing crazy whips and stuff. Like, this bike is legit. But the value is incredible. This GT Force Carbon Elite is MSRP $3,800, and it's on sale for less than that right now over at in Blowing Rock at Roadie Bicycle Outfitters. And so to me, this is just a classic tax refund bike. You know, you pay, you know, between $3,000 and $4,000, you get a complete bike. I mean, normally you're paying at least $3,800 for an enduro bike frame, and maybe you'll get a shock on it. Here you get a complete bike that works, and you can replace parts as you go. I think that generally the sensible thing to do when you're buying a bike is to think, hey, I'm buying geometry and a suspension kinematic. The components are what they are. A lot of them are going to wear out anyway, but the GT Force, the suspension kinematic is sweet. Like, it's a good climbing, high pivot bike. The geometry is probably the best geometry I've ever ridden or even seen. Like, it's perfect. So if you think of it that way, I think you put the money into the bike, you get a complete bike you can ride right away, replace things as you go, and I think you put some four-way suspension front and rear, maybe you throw some carbon wheels on it, replace the stock handlebar, and that's probably all you have to do. Oh, you know, drivetrain probably wear out, you put like a higher end drivetrain on it, and suddenly you've got a bike that rides like a $10,000 bike that you paid, you know, $6,000 for over a period of years. It's just a really smart idea. So smart that I'm considering it. I have it in my garage. Anyway, if you're interested in it, you can contact Brian or Matt or Lauren over at Roadie. I'm probably gonna have to give it back, unfortunately, but I'm gonna get some more rides on it, sans camera, and cheers, y'all, till the next ride.